All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who I learned this truth from. And I like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today is Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. And there's going to be another episode of Missile Monday. And I have this article from Lawfare. And it says, Tokyo's nuclear dilemma. Would a nuclear-armed Japan be a deterrent shortcut or a source of instability? So I'm just going to go into this article and read a couple of scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And this is a bit of a long article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will link it in the description box for those that want to check it out. And it says, Japan may be rethinking its long-standing aversion to building, maintaining, or hosting atomic weaponry. Some American strategists seek such friendly proliferation as an acceptable cost for reducing the U.S. role in the region, or even as beneficial in preserving stability. This is a mistake, although there are strong reasons for Tokyo to consider abandoning its aversion to hosting or even sharing nuclear weapons in service of extended deterrence. Assessments of the benefits of fully joining the nuclear club often rest on the caricatures about the risks of pursuing a nuclear capability, the viability of minimal nuclear deterrence, and the extent to which a nuclear arsenal can solve a state's security problems. Japan will face an increased risk from China, and the United States will probably have to play a greater role in ensuring its allies' security. And late last year, Japan questioned on whether the U.S. would have its back, in the midst of a war, because again, Japan and America are allies with each other, and that's one thing that Japan is considering, either developing, or like it says, or even hosting nuclear weapons, So continuing, it says Japan is surrounded by three nuclear-armed revisionist powers, China, Russia, and North Korea, that are each enhancing their arsenals. This threat, along with a new prime minister who appears less bound to foreign policy tradition than some of her predecessors, and widespread questions regarding the U.S. role in the region and the world, may change Tokyo's approach to nuclear weapons. This is especially likely if South Korea opts to adjust its own nuclear status, leaving Japan as the only power without a nuclear arsenal in an increasingly dangerous neighborhood. Notably, over the past year, various reports have raised the possibility that Japan could rethink its nuclear status. In a November 2025 Diet session, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi hinted at revisiting the language of the three non-nuclear principles: not possessing, not producing, and not permitting the introduction of nuclear weapons onto Japanese territory. As her government revised Japan's key national security documents the following month, an unnamed advisor to the Prime Minister's office allegedly declared that Japan should possess nuclear weapons In response to a reporter's question, Takeichi later reiterated her comment to the three non-nuclear principles, but just recently her defense minister advocated to an open debate over the nuclear issue. So right now, Japan is in talks, like it says, to either host or start developing their own, nuclear weapons. Because again, you know, Japan is allies with America, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did opt in to either host or, build their own. Because just like, I personally believe, I'm not saying it's fact, but, just like I personally believe that, Iran has nuclear weapons, but they just have them hidden, and even if they don't, Russia is going to supply them with weapons, man, you know, because again, this is what, is going to take place. Russia is going to help its allies, and America's allies are going to turn on her, because that's the end game, man. All of the nations that are at odds with America, they're going to shoot their missiles over here. And then even America's allies, they're going to, aid in that destruction and shoot their missiles over here as well. So if Japan does get nuclear weapons, hell, don't be surprised if they get sent this way, you know, or really not if, but when they get sent this way, I should say. So again, it's a bit of a long read. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but just want to hit a couple main points and that'll be it. I got to get ready for work in the morning. It's the book of Joel, chapter 3 and verse 9, and it says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong." And right, we can see that with, the countries that are named, Russia, China, North Korea, countries like that, they're upping their nuclear arsenal. Excuse me, Slovakia, but they're upping their nuclear arsenal, which is why, again, they're putting a lot of their resources toward, their military, or if not only their military, but also towards, their nuclear programs, man. This is why Russia has been, updating their weaponry. China has been updating their weaponry, and of course, North Korea, excuse me, Slovakia. But that's the time that we're in, man. We're in a time of war, and we're going to see these things increase, because again, there are currently 9 nuclear armed nations. And if, Iran gets weapons, that'll make 10. If Japan gets some, 11. We'll see when that time comes exactly how many nuclear armed nations there are going to be in total. But right now, as it stands, there are 9 nuclear armed nations. And out of those 9, the primary 2 being Russia and the United States. Those are the main 2 countries that possess the most nuclear weapons or warheads in particular, So again, this is what they're doing. Let the weak say I'm strong, man. Because the same, technology and weaponry, military-wise, that America had, or has, now the other nations have, which is these nuclear missiles, man, because Japan is still feeling the effects to this day, just, in a couple weeks, because I forget the exact date, but it's going to be 81 years since the events of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, having those atomic bombs dropped on them by the United States military took place, 81 years since that event has taken place. But yeah, man, this is what's taking place. We're in a time of war, So it's the book of Isaiah chapter 9. I went to the wrong chapter. The book of Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 5. It says, "For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire." And right, this coming world war, is going to be like how traditional warfare was fought, where you would have one nation of men on one side of the battlefield, up against another nation. It's like you're up against another nation of men on the other side of the battlefield, charging each other in the center, having different weapons of war, swords, spears, shields, bow and arrows, things of that sort, going at it until one nation of men is left standing, hand-to-hand combat, guerrilla warfare, if you will. It's not going to be like that. This Third World War is primarily going to be fought with these nuclear missiles, man, and as I always make mention, that you will have ground troops that are going to be going to war with each other. Of course, there is going to be ground war that's going to take place over in the valley of Jehoshaphat, or in the Hebrew, Yehoshaphat, which is, the region over there in Saudi Arabia. So all of the American troops, which are going to consist of men and women, they're going to get sent over there, and they're not going to come back home, man. They're going to die over there. So right now, in this current time we're in, is the worst time to be in the United States military, man. Any branch of the service, especially the Air Force. Because if you're a part of the Air Force, just understand that you're going to have to, try, keyword try, and fight against the Lord, which you'll be unsuccessful. It's not even going to be fair. What the Lord is going to do to you, you people that are in the military, especially those of our own people, you're going to be vaporized. You're not going to make it. So, hey. But we're patiently waiting for that day to come, man, when this place gets taken down. This is the book of Malachi, chapter 4, and verse 1. It says, "For behold, the day that cometh shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch." Right, talking about America, because that's the day that's coming that shall burn as an oven. World War III, because again, this is why you have countries like, again, Russia, China, North Korea, even London, America, these different nations, all of these nuclear armed nations, I should say anyway, this is why they're getting ready for a war, man. And even non-nuclear nations that are allies with Russia, they're getting ready for this Third World War. Everybody's getting ready to come up against, America, man, because that's the end game. All of the evil that America has done, throughout this world, man, she's going to be paid back for it. All of these nations are mad. Yeah, they're going to get their get back, but what? All you other nations, you're going to take down the American Edomites, and certain of, you European Edomites will see it, because again, I personally believe, Russia may get hit, because again, America does possess missiles. I believe, they're going to bomb back, right before they go out, just personal belief. I'm not saying it's fact, but it somewhat, makes sense for them to possess, nukes, and to, get theirs off as well, but again, we'll just have to wait and see when that time comes with other lands, besides Russia. It's lucky not Russia, but America and Israel get hit, because those are the two red zones, America and the land of Israel. They're going to be destroyed, So we're going to end it with this. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 9 and verse 15. And it says, "And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men." And right, when you read in Revelation, the 7th chapter, you read about the 4 angels, which these are 4 literal angels holding back the 4 winds. which the four winds represent the coming destruction that is going to take place here in America, aka World War III, if you will, you know, because there is a set time when this war is going to take place. You know, there's a particular hour, day, month, and year, as it says, you know, and as we know, when I say we, you know, the men of Great Millstone, know that this war isn't going to take place until the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip, gets made mandatory and is pushed throughout the world, you know. So until that prophecy comes to pass, this war will not come to pass, you know. And it says, you know, to slay the third part of men, because this coming destruction is for a specific, you know, group of people, you know, because you have three classes of men on the earth. You have the sons of God, which today are the biblical Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, from the tribe of Judah all the way down to the tribe of Issachar. And you have the sons of men, which are you different heathen nations. And you have the sons of the wicked, which are the nation of Edom, you so-called white people. You know, you're the third part of men, you know, the wicked. Because this coming destruction is for you, you know. You will have 2/3 of the nation of Israel that are going to get caught up in this destruction. Those that actually, you know, make it up until, you know, those nukes get launched, you know. And then, you know, you heathens, you know, you're just collateral damage. You know, you're just here to make your little money and then die when that time comes. Other than that, man, this coming destruction is for the nation of Edom. You wicked 2/3 will get caught up in it, and then you heathens will get caught up in it as well, you know. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the artists of Great Millstone who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.